So the new Company of Heroes game has released, and it has been a bit of a doozy. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this review, I kinda have to mention that I received a review copy of the game and that I even got an affiliate link, so that is something. Now, let's dive into the review. So, in my opinion, every game that just starts with a tutorial section, no menu, no start screen, no time to change settings or get ready, just BAM! Gameplay, can you please just
flower
right off? Maybe when you're in an action spectacle fighter, sure, but an RTS game, what the
fish.
That aside, let's jump into the actual review. Before we get into the thick of things, let's just quickly explain what game Company of Heroes actually is. Company of Heroes is a World War II squad-based RTS that focuses on capturing points to give you resources and zone of control. These resources allow minimal base building and the building of troops and battlefield defenses. Each of the games in this series has its own theme. In the first one was the Normandy campaign, the second one gave Russia a try, and later the Battle of the Bulge, and then the third installment brings us up to the North Africa campaign as well as the invasion of Italy. In the current iteration, there are 4 playable factions, the British and Americans on the Allied side and the Wehrmacht and the Afrika Korps on the Axis side. However, each of the playable factions has 3 battle group specializations, or flavors, doesn't really matter what you call it. They mostly change with abilities you unlock, so to just sum them up, Wehrmacht gets the mechanized, breakthrough and Luftwaffe battle groups, the US Army gets the airborne, armored and special ops battle groups, the Afrika Korps gets the Italian infantry, Italian combined arms and the armored support battle groups, and to round it off we have the British forces with the Indian artillery, British armored and British air and sea battle groups. So there you have it, the 4 factions and their unique flavors. As for content, there are 2 campaigns and of course the skirmish mode. For the campaigns you have the dynamic Italy campaign, a Total War style-ish of campaign, and a more classic North African operation campaign. As for maps, in the release you'll have access to 14 skirmish maps, 5 1v1 maps, 4 2v2, 3 3v3 and 2 4v4 maps, so that's a pretty neat spread. For the Italy campaign, you can freely move your armies around the map, capture cities and build defenses while you're liberating Italy one town at a time. While this campaign starts very linear and scripted, it does open up a little bit after an hour or so of play. The moment it opens up, it really starts showing its strengths and weaknesses. Your armies receive experience during these skirmish style battles and allow you to upgrade and specialize every army unit to your liking. However, units and unit experience gained during the battles does sadly not carry over. However, if your army gets enough experience on the battle map, all units start with, well, more experience. Overall, a good attempt, but a lot of room for improvement. I'll be honest, I had hoped for a more open-ended Total War style campaign, but it's a bit more limited, but I'll get into my opinions about specifically that later. As for the Africa campaign, this is just your straightforward mission after mission campaign. As far as I can tell, no progress is carried over between mission. It follows the story of Rommel in Africa and its battles versus the Allies. Straightforward and box standard, but comes with some very nice cutscenes and voiceover storytelling. So, you know, fairly enjoyable.
His unpredictable maneuvers left us scrambling to survive as the German flak guns devastated our lines and our morale.
One of my current bigger disappointments and annoyances about the campaigns is the early game handholding. The first few missions of the Italy campaign are so heavily restricted and just more tutorials that they just really start bothering me. Especially for someone who has some experience with strategy games and Company of Heroes in general. Now, I'm by no means not some sort of pro or savant strategist, but this is just excessive. Please allow me to skip. As for when you really get down into the Italy campaign, it still feels very railroaded. I was personally hoping for more of a Total War style map game experience. Right now, the game still railroads you objectives, and I feel that it's not really necessary and, in my case, not really welcome. Allow me to play the campaign with all the training wheels and railroad tracks and make it a open-ended and possible maybe even an historical playthrough. This gives a lot more replayability and longevity to your campaign. However, after a bit of an hour of play and handholding, the campaign opens up a bit more. The AI seems to wake up a little bit and skirmish battles have a decent variety of objectives to complete. It is not Total War, but it's a good start. I just hope they're going to improve the campaign a little bit further. It has a lot of potential, but it can use a really nice bump in quality and features. And while we don't have a World War II Total War yet, it gets closer to becoming a reality. let's use this segue to start talking about some general gameplay. It's fine, nothing truly new or revolutionary. It is what you by now can expect from a Company of Heroes game. The units feel responsive, cover works well, and most of the time everything does what you want it to do. So nothing really new here. As for the AI, well, the AI is, well, special. I've seen infantry run into machine gun fire just to die and not retreat. I've seen tanks just spinning on a spot for the majority of the game. The normal and tough AI are pushovers. This is mostly my experience in the skirmish games, but I think it's safe to assume that the skirmish AI and the campaign AI are about the same. Bit of a disappointment. However, comp stomping is still very fun to do, especially with friends. After the game is released, there might have been a small update to the AI, I'm not sure, but when playing the game with a friend versus two computers, I struggled a lot more in dominating the AI, so that's a good thing, right? Or my friend was just shit. Right now I've played a few games against the AI, and while on lower levels they are mostly just very good at finding holes in your defensive lines and using those to backcap points, the AI is just not that great overall. The closest we've come to losing a skirmish match so far was a 3v3 versus the so-called fearless AI. After 15 minutes we got locked into our base, but after 45 minutes of constant struggle we managed to slowly turn the tide and finally take down the enemy. This was however on annihilation mode and we would have lost on standard. We had no map control for the first 45 minutes, but it was a bit of a fun match though. Alright, next up, let's talk a bit about the graphics. The game looks good, the models and units are very well done, and the skirmish maps look good. Tanks look a little bit thin though. Anyway, however, the Italy campaign map looks really washed out and feels dead and empty. As the general feel of the graphics, it feels like all colors are kind of washed out. There's little to no vibrant colors and everything just kind of feels muted. I've been in Italy, and while there are loads of earth tones there, especially in the late summer and fall, colors pop just a lot more. You can overdo saturation and make it look all really cartoony, but right now it lacks definition. Dark spots are gray and highlights are just lighter gray or brown or any other muted color, your pick. However, the worst offender in the graphics department for me is the lackluster and in my opinion fairly poorly designed menu UI. The UI in the skirmish game is fine, even though you sometimes have a huge yellow, white and black icons above your units and not all of them are as clear as what they mean and no tooltip to explain, but the menus in the Italy campaign and the main menu just feel like an afterthought. For example, when I want to play a quick skirmish match against the AI, I click on the skirmish button. And then for some reason a new menu opens that contains two buttons, skirmish and return. Why the f do I need to select skirmish twice? Really? Does Relic UX department not have any Q&A and or feedback division? As for special effects, stuff looks really nice. Vehicles show combat damage, for example, tanks that get blasted by flamethrowers are now blackened and burned. Explosions look amazing and feel like they carry weight, unlike mortars as they fly so slow it feels a bit like you're shooting paper balls. They do good damage though. Some vehicles even change appearance when gaining veterancy, so all in all it looks really good, bit washed out. In the end, I do like the graphics, but I'm waiting for a reshade mod or some such just to make everything pop a little bit more, as right of now it just makes me kinda sad. As for audio, it's fine. Explosions sound meaty and the gunshots sound mostly fine, but sometimes a lack of a bit of punch. What really grinds my gears is hearing German voices speaking with the god-awful German-English stereotypical voice. Same for the Italian troops. It is 2023, can we please use native speech? I can't understand a single word Italian, but I would love it if my troops would just reply with it. Worse even is that some of the responses are with the troops' native language, so how hard would it be to do the rest of them as well? Besides, 90% of the responses are fluff anyway until they start shouting grenade, which is close to the same in German and Italian. It gets especially annoying when in some of the cutscenes the voice lines are spoken in Taghlit, a language spoken only in parts of Morocco and Algiers, not some terrible Arabic or North African accent. Full, unadulterated Taghlit with subtitles.
إبا سبقين تلفوحتين لم تتغسى كيسو دراينا كرا فرسيسين لايني تلحونا ورقص نيتك يننهون كان للمان ريحة داسنا أدور يدين يكان ولا نين نسلة يتلفحتين دي كان فلاح النروي.
Why could this not have been done for the German and Italian voices in the cutscene? Heck, I would love for some of the Indian troops to speak Hindi or one of the other languages of India during combat. It would make a lot more sense. I don't know, just feels like a lost opportunity. To be fair, some of the German lines just sound like Remy Down Under doing a terrible German impression. So do some of the Aussie troops. Hold on, did Remy happen to do some voice work? Let me check. Nope, not that I can find, so it is just bad. Almost feels memey. Though Company of Heroes games always have been a bit over the top. Music is good. I think the Italy campaign has no music on the campaign map as far as I can tell, just some windy ambiance, but I never really noticed the music, nor the absence of it, so that is good, I think. Hard to say. Here are some of the examples, I guess. That all aside, as for performance, the game runs great, and for me has so far been stable, no crashes or weird stuttering or things like that. As for performance, I have a fairly beastly machine, and so do most of my friends, so we may be a very poor judge of performance, but on a technical level, it all looks fine to me. I do however feel like there is very little customization options to tailor your experience and performance levels. Okay, so with that all out of the way, let's get into a small rant. Really small one. Look at this. What the fish is this? For those among us that have no clue what is horribly going wrong here, let me fill you in. They're firing M1 carbines, or even M1A1 carbines, a semi-auto 30 cal rifle. Let me repeat that last bit, it's semi-auto. This is what an M1 carbine looks like when fired.
Where'd everybody go? I have no idea!
What the
Flower.
How can a game that gets developed by an experienced company not get this right? There are hours upon hours of footage of this gun in action. There are loads of books, museums, and experts that could have helped you on this, but somewhere in the animation department of Relic, an employee went, "Oh, I see a gun handle, gun goes click clack," and no one corrected this. Not a single person checked it, or does no one at Relic have any actual gun knowledge. I can forgive that the M1 Garans are not unloading their clips at rapid pace, but bolt cycling is semi-auto gun is unforgivable. 1 out of 10, do not recommend this game. All joking aside, this is just bad and could have easily be prevented. Right, now that is behind us, let us all end on a more positive note before heading into my final conclusion and recommendations. Big plus, there's a full Steam Workshop integration on launch. Nice. I hope to see some nice new maps and mods, hopefully soon. I hope especially that the modders will be able to tinker with the Italy campaign. As for my conclusion, the game is a solid maybe? It is a lot of fun to play with friends for sure, and even in single player there's loads of fun to be had, but here's the kicker. There is no such thing as a bad product, but only a bad price, and this is the giant elephant in the room for me. The game retails for about 60 euros or your regional equivalent pricing for a AAA game, and that feels very steep. And I don't feel like it's worth the asking price at the moment. Except for the UI, everything that is present is fine, but it lacks the final pass and polish that it just needs to be great. More like a good early access title, not a 60 euros AAA release. It's just very bare bones. It just feels not done, especially the Italy campaign feels like a lot of wasted potential. I'd really hope for a more Total War style campaign with the battle gameplay of Company of Heroes, but as it stands we mostly play the same skirmish battles with a few different objectives with no real progression between fights. It is all so close, but yet it's just not there. It's not bad, but disappointing, which in my opinion is worse. At the time of recording, I have around 30 hours of playtime in the game, and if I would not have gotten the game for free to review, I would have most likely refunded it before the 2-hour mark on Steam. Take this as a warning. If you really are into Company of Heroes and crave something new, go for it. You are the best judge of where money is well spent, but if you're new to the series and don't care much about the Italy campaign, you'd be best to pick up Company of Heroes 1 and 2. The same-ish gameplay and a lot better value for money as for right now, or wait for a good sale. And that is it. This has been the longest review I think I've done so far. Definitely had the most script written for it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. With that said, I want to thank everybody for watching and see you hopefully next one. If you want to sponsor this channel, you can check me out on the Twitches or the Patreons, or there's even a store somewhere linked in the description. If after all of this you decide to pick up the game, use at checkout the code DIMOSA. It will give me a very small percentage of the proceeds, and I would very much appreciate that. And with that said, I want to thank everybody for watching. See you hopefully next one. Have a very good day. Bye bye.